So the comma was invented to help readers, basically. So without it, the sentence parts can kind of collide into one another expectedly and cause misreadings of the material. So in general, you add comma in the logical places, and suddenly everything is clear. Take these examples. If you cook, Elmer will do the dishes. While we were eating, a rattlesnake approached our campsite. Add a comma here and here after cook and after eating. And suddenly everything is clear. No longer is Elmer being cooked, and no longer is the rattlesnake being eaten. So various rules have evolved to prevent such misreadings and to speed readers along through the complex grammatical structures. I wanted to take this opportunity to review some of those rules for you. If you use a comma after an introductory clause or phrase. So when an introductory word group, clause, or phrase functions as an adverb, usually telling when or where or how or why or under what conditions that main action of the sentence occurs. Then a comma will tell the readers that the introductory clause or phrase has come to a close and that the main part of the sentence is about to begin. So here, without this comma after iron, readers might think that Kathy is ironing her cat. When you insert this comma, and it reads, when Kathy was ready to iron, her cat tripped on the cord. This revised example, the introductory comma, signals the reader that her cat is the subject of a new clause and not part of the introductory one. Near a small stream at the bottom of the canyon, the park rangers discovered an abandoned mine. When you place the comma here, it tells the reader that this introductory prepositional phrase has come to a close. So sentences also frequently begin with a participle phrase that describes the noun or pronoun immediately following them. So the comma tells the reader that they're about to learn the identity of the person or thing being described. So thinking his motorcade drive through Dallas was routine, comma, right? President Kennedy smiled and waved at the crowds. Transitional phrases or transitional expressions serve as bridges between sentences or parts of sentences. They include conjunctive adverbs such as however, therefore, and moreover, and transitional phrases such as for example, as a matter of fact, and in other words. Take these examples. As a matter of fact, American football was established in the mid-19th century by fans who wanted to play a more organized game of rugby. When the transitional expression appears at the beginning of the sentence like this, it's usually set off by a comma. Likewise, when the transitional expression appears in the middle of an independent clause, it is usually set off by commas as well. So here, Joe didn't always avoid eating junk food. Double stuffed Oreos, comma, for example, comma, were his favorite after-workout treat. Here's some examples of transitional phrases. Sometimes when I do a copy edit of work, I'll use these as red flags, actually doing a search for them in my Word document to double check for missing commas. Parenthetical expressions. The world as far as she knew didn't work this way. Add commas after world and after new. The world, as far as she knew, didn't work this way. Parenthetical expressions might also appear at the end as afterthoughts, as in this example. The bass weighed 12 pounds, give or take a few ounces. We add a comma after pounds to set off the afterthought parenthetical. Word groups expressing contrast. So sharp contrasts beginning with words such as not, never, and unlike are often set off with commas as well. So add a comma after Daniel to contrast Daniel's and Mike's opinions of broccoli. Again, this contrast might interrupt the flow of a sentence. The students in that class sought creative, not intellectual outlets. Add commas after creative and intellectual to set off this contrast. So we can also use commas to set off nouns of direct address, the words yes and no, interrogative tags, and mild interjections. So we'll deal with these one at a time. First, direct address. Consider the meaning of the sentence here without the comma. Celia put the gun down. It's not grammatically incorrect, but it means here that Celia is the subject of this sentence, and the sentence describes her actions. If we add a comma, notice the meaning of this same sentence with just this small addition of the comma after Celia. Celia, comma, put the gun down. By adding a comma here, this becomes a direct address to Celia, a request for her to put down the gun. Here as well is another example of a noun of direct address. Can you see how the missing comma completely changes the meaning? One should not write, let's eat grandma, if one means, let's eat grandma. If a noun of direct address interrupts the flow of a sentence, set it off by commas. Instead of forgive me, Angela, for forgetting your birthday, write forgive me, comma, Angela, comma, for forgetting your birthday. Yes and no are treated in a similar manner. If you write yes, the loan will probably be approved, it communicates to the reader that there's a loan named yes, the loan. However, if you add a comma after yes, it clearly communicates that this is an answer. So, interrogative tags require a comma as well, where a question is raised, often to confirm agreement. You know what I mean, what wasn't it, isn't it, didn't it? Take, for example, this sentence. The film was faithful to the book, wasn't it? It reads better with a comma after book, doesn't it? The same holds true with mild interjections. Well cases like these are difficult to decide. Should be, well, comma, cases like these are difficult to decide. Use commas to set off non-restrictive or non-essential elements, and do not use commas to set off restrictive or essential elements. So here, what I mean is a non-restrictive modifier describes a noun or pronoun whose meaning has already clearly been defined or limited. Because the modifier contains non-essential or parenthetical information, it's set off with commas. If you remove a non-restrictive element from a sentence, the meaning does not change dramatically. Some meaning may be lost, but the defining characteristics of the person or thing described remain the same. Here, in the first sentence, the camper needs sturdy shoes, and the shoes happen to be expensive. In the second sentence, the selection committee met to review applications for the Farrington Best Story of the Year award. That they represented 8 different universities is informative, but not critical to the meaning of the sentence. The non-essential information in both sentences is set off by commas. A restrictive element, on the other hand, defines or limits the meaning of the word it modifies. Therefore, it is essential to the meaning of the sentence and is not set off with commas. If you remove a restrictive modifier from a sentence, the meaning changes significantly, becoming more general than you intended. Here, the first sentence does not mean that campers need clothes in general. The intended meaning is more limited. The campers need durable clothes. The second sentence does not mean that scientists in general are called geologists. Only those scientists who specifically study the Earth's structure are called geologists. The italicized word groups are essential and therefore not set off with commas. Look at these sentences. Can you tell which is correct? Often, it's difficult to tell whether a word group is restrictive or non-restrictive without seeing it in context or without considering the writer's meaning. So actually, both of these sentences are correct, but their meaning is slightly different. So in the first example, the phrase made with raspberries tells readers which of two or more desserts the writer is referring to. In the example with the commas, the phrase merely adds information about the dessert. Adjective clauses are patterned like sentences containing subjects and verbs, but they function within the sentences as modifiers or nouns or pronouns. They always follow the word they modify, usually immediately. So these adjective clauses begin with a relative pronoun, who, whom, whose, which, that, or with a relative adverb, where, when. So non-restrictive adjective clauses are set off with commas. For example, in this sentence, the adjective clause, which is located on 13 acres, does not restrict the meaning of Ed's house. The information is non-essential and therefore enclosed with commas. Because the adjective clause here that was born at the San Diego Zoo in 2003 identifies one particular panda out of many, the information is essential and therefore is not enclosed in commas. Use that only with restrictive or essential clauses. So when you use that, you generally do not use a comma. Many writers prefer to use which only with non-restrictive or non-essential clauses, which require the comma. In fact, many writers think of this comma rule as the that-which rule. So I hope you found this little review of comma usage helpful. Feel free to post any questions to this as a reply to this discussion thread.